This is the one thing that I wish I learned sooner, because it literally took me going through an entire therapy program to understand this concept, but once I fully did, I saw it in everything. And that is that there is negative in every positive, and there is positive in every negative. Even if you think about the yin-yang symbol, there is that little circle of light within the dark, and even on the light side, there's that little symbol of darkness within the light. And that is true for everything in life as well. Hi, I'm Julia. Welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel if you're new here. This video I am so excited about. This is how to turn any negative situation into a positive situation just by changing your perspective and understanding what negative and positive truly mean and how to get to a neutral place from there. But I promise you, once you actually understand these definitions that I'm going to share with you about negative and positive in life, your mind is going to be like, because that's how I felt when I finally understood it from this perspective. And side note, I had the idea for this video for a little while, like a week, written on my video list. I knew how to do this already, like more unconsciously, but I didn't know how I was gonna speak it into words for you to understand. And then I sat at my desk this morning, went into a 4-minute and 44-second meditation, and then I got the idea of exactly how I want to explain this to you within 2 minutes and 40 seconds of meditating. So it downloaded pretty fast into my mind, and I just channeled it out into my iPad. So I'm going to share with you everything that I channeled for this, because I knew this information already, but my mind was reblown once I wrote it down. So let's start with what positive and negative really mean in the grand scheme of things. Positive, by definition, is to expand. It's to add to. So when you think about positive numbers, you are in the growth, you're in the positive, you're adding to. So basically what positive means is to come together, to become one and expand. Negative means to separate, to divide. If you think about it mathematically, you can use division to get negative numbers. So negativity means to fragment and to separate. And then there's neutrality. Neutrality is just neither. It's staying the same. It's not adding in a positive way, and it's not dividing in a negative way. I would say neutrality is sort of the observer, the observation. I see a hawk. I think that's a hawk. I don't know. It's one of those big birds, like on my window. Anyway, I saw 2 of them. Luckily Dexter's in the house, although Dexter's a pretty big animal and I don't think they could scoop him up like they do the little dogs that I've seen on TikTok. They're big birds though, but Dexter's a big cat. Anyway, I got sidetracked. If you understand positive to be adding more and negative to be taking away, that doesn't necessarily equal to positive being good and negative being bad, because you could have something negative that could be deemed as good, and you could have something positive that could be deemed as bad. For example, let's say gaining weight. You are adding to your weight, but if you're gaining excess weight, that would be probably deemed as bad for your health, versus losing excess weight, which would be subtracting weight, which would mean taking away, which would be considered negative. That would actually be maybe good for your health if you needed to lose weight. So I say all that to say that positive and negative are just ways to categorize things almost in a mathematical way of understanding. They're two sides of the same coin, basically. But when we use our judgments and our stories that we tell ourselves, we tend to deem positive as good and we tend to deem negative as bad, when they are inherently neither. But from our human perspective, it can often feel as though negative dividing things are bad and positive adding things are good. Both help the growth and expansion of our universe, of source, of God. And we wouldn't have both of those things if they weren't contributing to the expansion. So when you look at it like that, it makes everything, even what is negative and dividing, actually a positive, because we are growing through that, which I know can be really hard to understand because it's not something that we can see or comprehend from our human perspective. It's something that we could only understand from pure consciousness or source's perspective. But basically, from the highest realms, source sees everything as just being. It just is. It isn't until we get into our human brains and bodies and perspectives that we actually see things as positive and negative, because source actually sees everything as positive, adding to the growth. But obviously, for our sake of being a human, we're gonna see things as positive, neutral, or negative. And because source sees everything as adding to the whole, we can tap into that energy especially when negative situations come about. We don't have to deem them as inherently all bad just because we are dealing with a negative situation. Even neutrality itself is actually considered to be positive. There's a scale that was made by a writer named David R. Hawkins called like the emotional frequency scale, and it actually shows that neutrality is on the positive end of that scale. So if we are in a negative state of mind and thinking thoughts in a negative nature that are dividing, if we can at least get our minds to a neutral state, then we are actually in the positive. No matter what we do, we can't mess it up because we are always a part of source and we are always adding to the whole. So therefore we are positive even when we're negative. I know that might be hard to wrap your brain around because I can come up with like a billion negative situations that I would personally deem as bad, and I would not know how to see it from the perspective of adding to the whole, but that's because I'm a human. Okay, so now that we have an idea and understanding of what positive and negative really are, when a situation comes up that is inherently more negative, we get the choice to choose the perspective that we take on about that situation. We can choose to look at a negative situation in a more negative light, judge it to be bad, and create a whole story around that and continue to manifest more of that negative feeling situation into our life. We can also do that with a positive situation. We can choose to deem it as negative in our minds, judge it as bad, and continue to create more negative feelings and negative situations based off of how we chose to perceive that situation. So you could also do the same thing with a positive perspective. You could experience an inherently negative situation, deem it as just part of what is, see it in a more neutral light, and choose a more positive perspective on it. And then, because you're choosing to see it in a brighter light, you're going to attract more things of the brighter light, regardless of experiencing a negative situation. And of course, you can do the same thing with a positive situation and seeing it in a positive light. Obviously, that's the easiest, but you get the point. What I'm trying to say is you can experience any situation in your physical reality, whether it is inherently negative or inherently positive, and choose to react to it however you choose to react, and then create more of the feeling you felt from that situation based off of your reaction. There's a saying by Bashar, I like to quote him a lot, that goes, "Your circumstances don't matter, only your state of being matters." And what that means is whatever happens to you, whether it is negative or positive, the way you choose to react and feel and be based off of that situation is exactly what you're going to get more of. So whatever happens in your 3D reality, no matter how negative, dividing, separating it is, or no matter how wholesome, bringing together, connecting, whatever it is, you're gonna get more of it or less of it based off of how you react to it. Let me give you an example of a situation that is more neutral. It's not inherently positive or inherently negative. It's just a neutral situation that you can choose to see in a negative light or a positive light based off of your perspective and the stories you tell yourself. So imagine you're heading back home from work and you get stuck in a random bout of traffic on the highway. Normally your ride home is pretty smooth, but out of nowhere there's a traffic jam. You can choose to look at it in a negative light and create more thoughts about how the traffic is annoying, it is frustrating, is keeping you away from seeing your family as soon as you wanted to see them, so it's dividing you for a longer period of time than you planned on, all these things, and get yourself into a negative thought spiral and a negative emotional state. Or you can choose to see the traffic as a neutral or positive thing in your life. You could be like, well, you know, normally I don't have to deal with traffic and I get to go home sooner and see my family and this and that, but maybe the traffic is here for a reason. Maybe if I had left a little sooner and missed the traffic, I would have been the car that was in the accident that was causing the traffic. So maybe the traffic was actually protection and was helping me to stay safe so that I can get home and see my family like I typically would do. That would be you choosing to see the traffic from a positive state because you are expressing gratitude for your safety and well-being, because you don't know what may have happened otherwise and you're choosing to look at this traffic as a blessing as opposed to a curse. So therefore, you're going to get more emotions and situations that reflect gratitude. Now, you can also do this same thing with an example that you may see as more inherently negative versus a neutral example. A neutral example like traffic is very easy to kind of pick a side of how you want to see it or just stay neutral. But when it comes to something that is more inherently negative, it takes a lot of practice to be able to reroute your mind and think, how can I see this in a positive light? What can I do to change my perspective? Because you always can, but it takes a little bit more presence and intention to do so. I'm going to give you an example of switching from a negative state to a positive state, what this whole video is about. Let's use the example of losing your job. That is typically seen as inherently negative because you need the job to make money, to live your life, to be out here existing. And when you lose it, your sense of security goes out the window with that. And it is very easy to see this as a loss and something that is negative versus a positive, a gain, a new beginning. But what I like to do when something really negative happens is I like to obviously feel the emotions I feel, because experiencing any loss can trigger maybe previous trauma or other emotions that are within your body that you need to release. So feel what you need to feel, self-soothe, but once you get through that point, it is time to rewrite the story and zoom out. Look at the job loss as one small situation in the grand scheme of your life. One small situation that is actually going to lead you to where you need to be, because the job that you were working at previously before you lost it was actually not the right job for your highest purpose, passions, and life. So therefore, you needed to lose that old job that wasn't right for you anymore so that you would have space to gain a new job that is right for you. It's going to bring a lot more opportunities into your life, maybe wealth, maybe just things you enjoy doing, whatever it may be. So you needed to lose the old job so that you could gain the new job and whatever comes with that new job. But when you are in your life as a human, losing your old job, you have no idea that you're about to gain this whole new amazing job that actually comes with all of this abundance, all of this money that you weren't making before, all these fun opportunities that you get to experience that your old job wasn't giving you, and maybe even new friends or new people that come into your life that you get to connect with that your old job didn't provide for you. But when you're losing that old job, all you can see is the past. All you can see is the now. You can't see the future and what is going to come in. So if you can sit there and accept that the universe is orchestrating everything to happen for your highest good and your well-being and the well-being for all. So if you can see it that way and trust that what is to come is going to be so much better than what you're letting go of, it creates feelings of hope within you and feelings of excitement for the future and feelings of curiosity, which are all more inherently positive. So when you're able to look at a negative situation like losing your job in that type of light, that is when you're able to way more quickly attract the job of your dreams in to replace that old job that was no longer meant for you. Now that type of work takes a lot of practice, and I suggest doing that on smaller things every day until you get to a place where you have practiced it enough that you can use it on the bigger things as they come. And those bigger things typically are huge life changes, like leaving a job, leaving a relationship, moving, all of these shifts in your life. Those things can sometimes be negative before they become positive. And that's just part of life, because when you shift into a higher state, you have to get rid of the lower state. You can't bring it with you. So you can't take your old job to your new job. You can't bring your old partner into your new marriage, you know? That type of thing just doesn't really work. Unless you're poly, then maybe. So how can you use this knowledge in your daily life to practice this so that as these negative or even neutral situations come up for you, you know what to do and you know how to switch perspectives or just choose the perspective that is going to be for your highest good? First thing first, we need to realize that we don't have all the answers for how our life is supposed to play out. We are in these bodies, living these lives, and there is a plan for us that the universe, God, source knows that we don't know, because we are in these bodies, living these lives. And that is the whole point. We're not gonna know everything. So reminding yourself when a negative situation comes up, I don't know everything. Say that with me. I don't know everything, and I don't know how this is going to play out to its completion. depletion. It looks kind of negative right now, but the game is not over, and I don't know who's gonna win in the end. If you really think about like a sports game, right? And you guys are throwing, kicking, whatever, the ball back and forth to see who's gonna win. Your team is down bad, and you think you're gonna lose. But in the next inning, the next quarter, the next whatever, your teammate scores 3 goals, and now your team is in the lead. And then the other team scores 3 more goals, and now you're tied. And you guys are going neck to neck. You can tell I really don't know sports that well. But anyway, the point is you guys are tied. The game is about to end. No one knows who's about to win, and then your team scores the point. But if you would have looked at the game 3 quarters or innings ago, you would have thought you were gonna lose because the other team had more points than you. And now you're at the end of the game and you won. So when you're in your negative situation, think about the fact that you don't know how this is going to play out, and that there is still a chance that you can win the game. Because most of the time in these situations, we put the cart before the horse. We count our chickens before they hatch. And when you do that in a negative situation that ends up being okay in the end, because they typically do, you are causing yourself all of this stress and all of this unnecessary negative feelings that you didn't need to go through. Basically, when you put the cart before the horse or count your chickens before they hatch, you are prolonging your blessings and your positive experiences from coming in. You're making them wait longer because you think that everything has gone to the dumpsters, when this is just a little challenge that you need to go through so that when you get to where you are trying to get to, you can look back and be like, oh, I actually learned so many things I needed to learn through that, so now I can actually experience these things and know what I'm doing in a much better way. That's one way of looking at it. Basically what I'm trying to say is that just because the situation you're in right now is inherently negative does not mean it's always going to be that way. In fact, it won't stay that way if you're able to see it from a positive perspective, and it will change a lot quicker because of that. Another thing I like to do during negative situations to switch my mindset into a positive one is to picture my life as a movie. This is the hero's journey, and we are at the climax of the movie where all of this conflict is happening. But if we were to zoom out and look at the movie as a whole, as opposed to being in the movie, we would see, oh, we're just in the middle of the movie. We haven't gotten to the end yet, where everything works itself out and the hero, the protagonist, gets to win in the end. Same as the sports game. And to really make myself believe that, I'll remind myself of times in the past where I got through something that was really tough or negative. I got to the other side and I was able to look back and be like, okay, so everything did work out in the end. Why was I stressing? Also something to think about. This is a little hint at life. It's never done until you're dead. And even when you're dead, you're still consciousness, and consciousness is infinite, so it's never over. It just goes on and on and on. And because it goes on and on and on, you get the chance over and over and over again to rewrite the story, change the script, make a negative situation into a positive learning experience. And when you finally decide to rewrite your story and your perspective to be one that is more favorable to you, that's when you get to experience situations, scenarios, circumstances that are way more favorable to what you actually want, and then you attract more of that through gratitude and other positive mind states and feeling states. So that is it for this video. I hope I was able to shift your perspective on negative circumstances and situations, and I will see you all in my next video next week. I love you guys so much. Bye!